Yes, a very warm welcome to you and thank you for joining us on Health and Wellness. My name is Zaitun Ali, and on today's episode, we want to talk about polycystic ovary syndrome. This is commonly known as PCOS. It is a hormonal disorder that actually affects women of reproductive age. And joining me in studio, I have Dr. Buckley Onyambo. He is a gynecologist at Ank Women's Clinic and also the Nairobi Hospital. Welcome on set. We also have the beautiful Natasha PCOS, who is a PCOS warrior. Karibu sana. And we're looking forward to hearing your experience and your story about this. And Daktari, your expertise is of need here because PCOS, as we know, actually in terms of prevalence, it approximately affects 8 to 13% of women of reproductive age worldwide. And it is it is the most common actually endocrine disorders in women. And we'd like to know about it. So from the description, from the definition, what is it and how does it come along?
Thank you. As you already stated, it's the commonest endocrine disorder. It is a disorder of the female reproductive hormones.
Yes.
And just by definition, there's a certain criteria that one would use to say that this particular individual has polycystic ovary syndrome. I'll just say it in a nutshell, that there could be features of lack of ovulation. And one of the ways you can tell that somebody is not ovulating is by irregularity of the menstrual periods.
Yeah.
Often there is a skipping of menstrual periods, sometimes up to 3 months. If somebody is getting 8 periods or less in 1 year, you could actually think that that person has polycystic ovary syndrome.
Yeah.
The other feature that would make one think that there is polycystic ovary syndrome is evidence of excessive male hormones, what we call hyperandrogenism. And male hormones are generally called androgens.
Yeah.
So evidence of that excessive male hormones, either by the test itself, if one does the laboratory tests and you're able to demonstrate that, or by clinical features, what manifests, meaning there is excessive acne, for instance, in the face, or if somebody has a beard, facial hair growing, etc.
I have one growing over here,
Yes.
by the way.
Yes.
But it is common in our home. Like my mom has it, my sisters have it. So inaweza kuwa symptoms.
Very unlikely. Even women will get 1 or 2 hairs, but not to the extent that one is consistently having to clip.
Or to shave.
To clip the hair.
Okay.
Then that is,
clip
again,
and shaving is...
it's the same thing, really, basically, to shave the hair.
Yeah.
Then that is, could be a feature of it. On top of that, there is a characteristic look of the ovaries when you look at them through an ultrasound imaging, and you will see that the ovaries have little fluid-filled pockets in them. Normal ovaries would have up to 8 to 12 pocket-filled spaces in them, but if you have excessive number of those pocket-filled spaces in them, what we call follicles in them, and that look of the ovary is actually where the disease derives its name from. Poly, meaning many, cystic, meaning cysts, ovary disease. So that look of the ovary. But that look of the ovary alone does not warrant one to diagnose polycystic ovary disease. It has to be in combination of 1 or 2 of these other features that I've talked about.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And I can see, Natasha, you're just nodding your head. You're nodding as Dr. is talking. They all sound familiar to you, right? Yes. Could you give us your experience and how the diagnosis came about?
Well, like we were having a chat with Dr. just before we came on the show, and we were talking about the fact that at least now many people are starting to understand what PCOS is. Doctors are able to help us manage it, live with it, because I've had PCOS since I was in my early 20s, late 30s. So you can imagine I've lived with it for almost 20 years. Okay. Because now I'm in my late 30s, sorry. And those days, it was very hard to diagnose. The doctors really didn't understand what this was. So you'd go to them. I remember the first time I went for checkup, I kept saying I'm feeling a heavy lump on one side. My menses have become irregular. I mean, when I was in my early 20s, it was cool.
Yeah.
I'm not getting my periods every month. I used to be excited
Cool.
about it.
Were you not getting shocked?
No, I wasn't. I was
Okay,
like, I
then
don't have
you
to
are a
keep
good
buying
girl.
pads. In fact, I remember I used to get a lot of free pads, and I would give them away.
Serious?
But then you start
You never
growing.
ever thought you were probably pregnant or something? Yeah.
You start growing older, and then you realize, by the way, this is a problem. This
Okay.
is not normal.
Okay.
And I used to go to hospital, and all the time I was being diagnosed with H. pylori. You have a parasite, mara sijui it's what, mara it's this.
Those meds are bad.
The way I remember even the first time I was given that, it's called the ESO kit. I went back to hospital and I told that doctor, I'm not able to take this because the nausea is too much.
Yeah.
And she was like, did you skip a dosage? I'm like, yeah. She's like, now you even have to start from scratch again. So take this for the nausea and now start again. It was brutal. So by the time I got a doctor who understood, listened, and diagnosed me, I had gone through it. And I've stuck with him for almost 20 years now.
Were the symptoms that Dr. was saying
Yes.
the ones you experienced?
Yes.
What were your symptoms?
My symptoms were, first
Apart
of
from
all,
the late menstrual periods.
yeah, first of all, 1 minute you're so skinny, the next minute you've blown up. You don't understand what is going on.
Gaining
One
weight.
minute you could eat whatever you want, the next minute you can't. Hair is growing all over your body. Your periods are not there.
Ndevu.
Yeah,
Kuna
ndevu.
pata.
You have to keep shaving all the time. And then there's a lot of stigma attached to it. Because you can imagine those days, you're skinny, then you start adding weight, you must be pregnant.
Yeah.
Yet you're not at that age where you should have gotten married, you know, settled down, have a kid. People are looking at you funny. You can't start talking to your parents about, oh, periods zangu hazikuji, mara I'm feeling funny, because they don't understand.
Yeah.
They don't I remember even the first time I went into hospital, my grandmother actually was telling people, oh, anaumwa tu na mbavu, ni mbavu tu, because she didn't know what to say.
What?
We didn't want to be judged, we didn't want to be victimized, but she knew that it had to do with my reproductive health.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of stigma attached to it. And I was even telling Dr. especially the fact that if you're in a long-term relationship,
Yes.
there are certain expectations. You settle down with someone, the first thing people are expecting is you have a child. It's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's no kid. How? Mtoto anakuja lini? What are you people serious? I mean,
You went through this.
I did. I went through it, and it was brutal. It even got to a point where I told my husband
Yeah.
that I would be okay if he wanted to get a child outside, because I can't have kids. We've tried and it's not happening.
Was he aware about your condition?
Yes, he
before?
was. We used to go for all the checkups together.
Okay.
And even when my doctor wanted to put me on treatment, he was very supportive, and he used to tell me, no, one day it will happen. And if it gets to a point where we have to adopt, I'm also okay with that. But then as a woman, at the back of your head, you know that this man will still want to see how he looks. So
Of course. There's
if
that
it ever
factor.
happens, but like, yeah, the stigma is there, the pressure is there, the stress, and you see all these things don't help the condition.
Yeah.
Because when you get stressed, when you have a lot of pressure, we go and start eating. We're trying to console ourselves, and we're eating all the wrong things. So now we're just making the situation even worse.
So finally, have you been blessed with a child?
I have.
So fast forward to that. Probably talk about the experience before that.
Oh, the experience, it was brutal.
Yeah. How are you managing it?
I was in denial. So I remember my doctor told me from day one thing you need to understand is there's no cure for this thing. This is a lifestyle choice. You just have to live with it. Maybe one day there'll be a cure, but for now, until we understand what this is, it's lifestyle. So number one, sugar has to go. So you're telling me to do away with cake, juice, soda, those are, yeah, you're telling me chapati has to go. In fact, he was telling me chapati is the hardest thing because someone will be cooking it on 10th floor. You're downstairs, you can't, I can't eat, no. He's like, you have to drink more water, you have to run, I'm like, no, I'm not ready for this. First, I'm already in denial because I can't have children now.
Yeah.
There's so much happening to me. I'm already overweight, I'm struggling to walk, to sit. I'm so conscious about how I look. Because it even got to a point where people are looking at you like, hey, you've jiachiliad. Why do you look like that? But they don't understand all the things you're dealing with. I'm like, do you know how hard it is to just look like this right now? All the things I'm dealing with just to get here. And so I remember my doctor telling me, because at that time I was in my early 20s, he was like, so if we put you on treatment, one thing you need to understand is you have to start having children now. You're telling this to a 22, 23-year-old. And he's telling me, they have to be a ladder. So if you want to have 3 children, because by the time you get to 30, we don't know the condition your eggs will be in. So if we start this treatment now, there's no stopping. You have to have children now.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not ready. I'm still too young. I'm still trying to understand everything, trying to figure myself out. I'll come back later.
Okay.
So it's like, maybe when I get to 30, maybe by that time things will have changed. Maybe I can try it then. So I disappeared for some time, but I still used to struggle a lot, you know, with especially the acne, the hair, the you know, you're not able to breathe well, you're always short of breath. So in my 30s is when now I started changing stuff a bit. I was telling doctor, I'm not a person who exercises a lot. So my doctor advised me, just do small things that you're able to do that will help you. So I remember in 2017, I was very committed. So I stopped drinking that whole year. I didn't cut sugar. I reduced the sugar I was taking. I started eating fruits a lot. I started walking a lot. Like chapati was half, you know, cake was a small piece. The greens were taking up the entire plate, you know. So I tried, and I could see a change. All of a sudden, my periods became regular.
Okay.
I felt fit, I felt lighter, I became more confident, because when I go to places, people do tell me, oh wow, you actually look different, you actually look nice, you know.
Because you decided to put in the work.
Because I decided to put in the work. So ever since that time, I didn't maintain it 100%. Of course, there were setbacks, I used to fall off, but I tried. So I realized it's a mental thing. Like if you don't want chips by there, if you put it in your head that I don't want to eat this, you won't eat it. So I started reducing the things that are not good for me. So I started drinking a lot of water, eating fruits as much as I can, and now since then my periods they've been regular.
Okay.
And I'd like to believe that those small changes are what at least helped me. And they always say it's not that for PCOS, it's not that you'll never have children. It's just that your process is delayed. When people are having children in their early 20s, in their mid-20s, yours will happen, but much later. Because I had kids in my mid-30s.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have 3 children.
Right now?
Without treatment.
Nice. Doctor, talk to us about that. How does it actually affect the fertility in women? And she has also mentioned something very huge, lifestyle. So also talk about that.
I think Natasha has just said it all.
Yeah.
She said, one, this condition has many causes. Genetics is one of the facts. And there is what we call epigenetics, the expression of the genes themselves. But then what happens, there is a trigger. You can have that predisposition as an individual, but something triggers the disease to manifest or to express itself. And what she has said is very true. An alteration in what you would call a healthy lifestyle most often is the trigger of endometriosis. Not of polycystic ovary disease. I just did a show on endometriosis. Polycystic ovary disease. So in terms of nutrition, there are changes that occur in the body that make the body what we call insulin resistance. And this is akin to type 2 diabetes, where the utilization of insulin is what pushes your sugar from your blood into the cells where it's needed. It's the gate. The gate have to open so that the insulin pushes the sugar into the cells where it's needed. But if that gate does not open easily, then sugar is not pushed into the cells where it's needed. It remains in the circulation in the body system. And that kind of resistance to insulin ends up manifesting itself in all these hormonal disturbances that you see. And you can note that the lifestyle changes that Natasha took. And I'm very glad you gave that testimony, Natasha, because it captures it all. In fact, you've taken away the show.
Within the first few minutes.
The first few minutes. Because,
second half.
she's actually explained everything.
Yeah.
And those changes that she made in her lifestyle reversed the process or the disease process of polycystic ovary syndrome. One, that insulin resistance. If one is feeding on a diet that is rich on sugars and a lot of dairy, I do dare add that one, then the body gets insulin resistance. If one is not creating a demand from within the cell, you know, you create a demand from within the muscle cell, especially by exercising. You know, when you walk, you're actually telling the cell that it requires more sugar in it. And therefore, naturally, you have more gates to allow the sugar in it. And then you reduce the insulin resistance. You develop more gates to allow the insulin to go inside. And that's how exercise helps. It helps you in one way to create that demand. And number two, you develop more muscle. And therefore, you manage that insulin. Instead of it loitering around in the blood, disturbing all other hormones that it's not supposed to disturb, then it's utilized where it's supposed to be. Utilize the sugar and the insulin. It's utilized where it's supposed to be utilized. So that is a very important element that she's talked about. Another element is, you know, these hormones, these reproductive hormones are produced mainly by the ovaries. But the ovaries are regulated by a gland that is at the base of the brain called the pituitary gland. That is the master gland. It's the one that controls all other glands that are in the body, including the ovaries. Now, the master gland at the base of the brain has connections with other parts of the brain, including the part of the brain that detects that you are asleep, you are awake. You're asleep, you're awake. You're asleep, you're awake. So you have a 28-day cycle because that cycle is made of 28 days. So the unit of measuring your menstrual cycle is 28 days. So the unit is a day. And what is a day? A day is daylight and nighttime. Daylight and nighttime. And naturally, one is supposed to be awake during the day and asleep during the night. And when you repeat that cycle for 28 days, the body has a way of saying you have done a cycle. And then in the middle of that cycle, you get ovulation. At the end of that cycle, you get your periods. Like that. But what about if your day is just day throughout? There is no night, there is no day. There is no day, there is no night. You know, your day is maybe 20 hours awake, 4 hours asleep. 20 hours awake, or sometimes it's 20 hours asleep, 4 hours awake. You are disturbing the unit.
Really?
You are disturbing the unit that makes your cycle. And this is common with people who have night shifts or who have to work odd hours or irregular shifts, and you are in that industry.
And you're
So you end up, you know, disturbing the cycle of the month. And what I want to say is that regular rest periods are important following the circadian rhythm for normal hormonal function.
Probably.
So, yes.
Even before you go too far. Is it the reason why sleep apnea is also related to PCOS?
Yes, exactly. You see,
you were finding it hard to, and difficulty in breathing. Were you snoring at night?
To date. And in fact, even when Doc talks about environmental factors, I was telling him in my early 20s, where I was working, I used to work at a call center, and I was on the early morning shift. And so we used to arrive at between 5:30, 6 a.m., and I would find myself eating the unhealthiest foods at that hour.
Junk.
And I remember my auntie, a medic, telling me, those foods you're eating are disrupting whatever biological process is meant to happen in your body at that hour. And it's messing up your hormones, so you need to stop. But then who am I? I keep going every day. Your smokies, your burgers, your chapati at 5, 6 in the morning.
Daktari. And for her, she was probably missing her menses. But there are others who actually get their menses twice a month. So is this also related to PCOS?
It's not menstrual irregularity is a feature of polycystic ovary syndrome, but not particularly frequent menstruation.
Okay.
The characteristic feature of polycystic ovary syndrome is skipping menses. Yeah, frequent menstruation may be caused by something different.
Okay.
But the features I alluded to, in fact, the figure that is ascribed to diagnosis of polycystic ovary syndrome is if somebody is getting 8 cycles per year or less, but not the frequent ones, not the ones that are twice in a month. That could be a hormonal problem, but not characteristically polycystic ovary syndrome.
Okay.
Yes.
And we can even talk about the health risks that are associated with PCOS. Does it get to affect other organs in the body?
Absolutely. I think it's not just the reproductive system that is affected by polycystic ovary syndrome. In fact, the hormonal imbalance is manifested in the reproductive system, but it affects almost the entire body. And I'll give you examples. Estrogen is very important for the management of bone density, for instance. And estrogen has to be controlled in its production so that you don't have a continuous production of estrogen that is not regulated by the, what I would call counter hormone, progesterone itself. So when you have that continuous exposure to estrogen, you are risking other things like conversion of the inner lining of the uterus then you have fat itself. Polycystic ovary syndrome affects the way fat is processed or metabolized in the body. And that is why fat ends up getting deposited in the wrong places in women who have polycystic ovary syndrome. You will see the characteristic deposition of fat in polycystic ovary syndrome.
The worst place.
Is in the worst place.
Around the,
yes.
That's the worst place.
And it never goes away.
And it never goes away. It remains here until you have to either surgically remove it or something like that.
Wow.
Or instead of the hips, around the hips, what we call a pear look, as opposed to an apple look. You see, this is, so it affects that also. And then you have, if left unchecked, you are predisposing yourself to diabetes, type 2 diabetes, because it's the same process that is going on. So systemically. And then on top of that, for me, the biggest element, and again, Natasha did capture it, is the self-feeding depletion of self-esteem.
Okay.
What I call it is a vicious cycle, because you start getting weight deposited in the wrong place, you're having this delay in getting a baby, then you get stressed about it, it lowers your self-esteem, you're no longer mixing with people because of all those features, then that stress feeds your cravings. You start eating the wrong things when you have these wrong cravings, and then you have, now again, the weight gain coming back, and so it's a vicious cycle.
It's something actually I want to talk about even when we come back from the break, how it affects women's mental health at least. And also we just talk about the treatment and management process. So we want to take a short commercial break, and while we are at it, please check Lugo Collections on Instagram, and they are courtesy of my feet. They always dress me and they do an amazing job. If you want amazing suits for both ladies and gentlemen, waangalie pale Instagram. They're also located at Muktadada Street, that is opposite Jivanji Gardens, at Lugo Collections. PSC, find us on KTN Home, on YouTube, on our social media platforms at KTN Home _, that is Instagram and X at Ali_Zaitun. And we're taking a short commercial break. Don't go too far. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back. If you're just joining us, remember this is Health and Wellness. My name is Zaitun Ali, and before the break, we were just talking about polycystic ovary syndrome, that is PCOS. And as we described it, it is a common hormonal disorder affecting women of reproductive age. So joining me in studio, in my near left, I have Dr. Buckley Onyambu. He's a gynecologist from ARC Women's Clinic and the Nairobi Hospital. Karibu sana. And still we have Natasha PCOS. She is a PCOS warrior, and she's pretty much given her experience about how she's managed this condition all through. And we want to just know more, especially when it comes to women's mental health. How has it affected her? So make sure to also interact with us on our WhatsApp line, 0759434389, and on our social media platforms at KTN Home _. So welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
And we were talking about mental health before we go on the break. And I just want to hear your experience about now the too much eating, you know, and the weight going in all the wrong directions. What kind of mental health issues did you go through?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know, back then, at least nowadays we can talk about these things.
Yes.
Back then you couldn't talk about it.
Back then, okay, unaongea nikaa ni kitambo sana.
It's
Si
such a
kitambo
long time
sana.
ago. We are talking what?
Really?
Your 2010s, 2007s,
What?
back then. Yeah. So those days,
Yeah.
like when you talk about mental health, it wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
People would not really relate as they do now. They wouldn't have the kind of empathy they do now.
Yes.
You can imagine you come from being skinny and then you add weight and you're eating a lot. People are just like, hey, and nowadays, hey, the portions on your plate, gosh, you're going to finish all that food. I used to get, you know, back and now you start feeling shy. You go to places and people are eating. You're like, I'm
Now
full.
Ushibi.
I'm full. I'm good. Are you hungry? No. You eat at home before you go where you need to go.
Or after.
Yeah. And then, you know, like they weren't, I don't want to say they were insensitive because they also didn't understand.
Yes.
But such comments, obviously, they'll get to you.
Yeah.
So be like, kwani, how am I eating? You know? And then, obviously, when it comes to people don't understand what you're struggling with, they're just saying, you eat a lot. That's why you're fat. And then now, over the years, you've maintained that weight. So they don't even understand how you've tried to, you know, lose it,
Yes.
the stubborn belly especially, and it's not working. So you just learn to live in that image of, you're overweight. You know, even back then, being plus size wasn't embraced as it is now.
True.
You'd go to stores, to places, people, seeing a plus size woman in a bikini, no, that never used to happen.
Yeah.
At least nowadays, people have embraced it, this fashion for plus size women. You go to places, you can comfortably ask for a size 16, size 18, and it's there. So, I mean, and the stigma, like I was telling you about not being able to have a child, like 1 to 3 years into a serious relationship. Now that I can tell you really took a toll on me and really played a role in all the lifestyle changes that ended up affecting me long run, because now you're eating more than healthy food. You're drinking more. I remember my doctor telling me now alcohol needs to go. I'm like, and once a week. Kidogo. It's like it has to go. You know, and you're eating all the wrong, like you're not, there's nowhere you're trying, nowhere. Where greens are, you're not found there.
Okay.
So ugali is the entire plate, kamboga kako hivi. So, and then it's a lot.
Okay.
That's self-esteem, that confidence, and then obviously now the stigma in the society, and kwani upati mtoto? Unajua kwani umenona aje? I used to have an auntie even used to feel my stomach every time to see if I'm pregnant. You know, such things. So, and I would want to imagine, like in the rural areas, it's worse.
Because the lack of awareness there.
The lack of awareness,
zero,
so because there they can't even talk about it.
True.
So even the advocacy is really needed.
Okay. Daktari, in terms of treatment and management, what are we talking about?
I think going to the root cause of the problem, the trigger that I talked about, lifestyle, that is the first approach. Whatever else that is the goal of the patient, lifestyle change is uniform. Beyond there, the treatment depends upon what the goal is. Because somebody may just want a restoration of normal menses and normal cycle, while another may actually be looking for a baby.
Yeah.
And the approach that you would give each one of them is different.
Yeah.
And the treatment that you'd give each one of them is treatment. But the universal one is a lifestyle change. And let me just dwell on this one a little bit, on lifestyle change that would help an individual overcome. First, any lifestyle change, the habit is developed over time and gets ingrained in the mind. So reversing a habit that has become a character is a tedious process that requires a lot of mental and physical discipline.
Okay.
So that is really a hallmark if one wants to escape this rat race of polycystic ovary syndrome. Then you have to garner or get all your mental discipline and including physical discipline, which I will explain. One, the diet. And Natasha has just told you how difficult it was for her to change what she was taking. Because as your body changes and all these metabolic changes happen in the body, you crave more.
Yeah.
So you have to deal with your diet. You have to drop the processed carbohydrates, you have to drop the sugars, and you have to increase a high fiber diet. You have to go into what I call live foods. Those are seeds, the cereals that you take. You have to go into the salads, you know,
Okay.
well, non-cooked vegetables, and they will help you to get back your insulin sensitivity that you've lost. Exercise I've mentioned before, and I don't want to emphasize that one. Water, hydration. Drinking water is very important in the process of lifestyle and removing those cravings. Sometimes you're just thirsty, you think you're hungry.
Yeah.
And especially when you have these conditions, it's difficult to differentiate between thirst and hunger. So you feed your thirst with food, and you still feel thirsty again after that, and you continue feeding it with. So aiming at taking about 2 to 3 liters of water, sometimes compulsively.
Yeah.
Don't wait until you feel thirsty to drink water. Would help in the lifestyle change. It's been shown without a shadow of a doubt that vitamin D3 is important.
D3, what components do we find probably in D3?
Actually, D3 paradoxically is made from cholesterol, a type of cholesterol, is 7-hydroxycholesterol. What the sun does, we have that cholesterol in the body, and when the sun hits the skin, it triggers the process of conversion of that type of 7-hydroxycholesterol into what is going to eventually be the active form of vitamin, which is vitamin D3. But it involves a healthy liver and it involves healthy kidneys. Because all those are involved in the activation that is triggered by the sun. Healthy liver and healthy kidney are involved in the processing of the raw material of vitamin D to become active vitamin D that benefits you. And vitamin D is known to regulate the function of almost everything, but particularly what we call inflammation. The alertness of the body, it's known to regulate that. And it's got a very important role in the causation of polycystic ovary disease. So exposure to the sun, this sun that we have, exposure. And you know, let me say this for the record, that we dark-skinned people require longer exposure to the sun than light-skinned people. People think the reverse. We who have a dark skin have a natural sunscreen. And therefore, to achieve adequate vitamin D levels, we require longer exposure to the sun than the white people. They would spend 10 to 20 minutes in the sun twice a week, and they have enough vitamin D. While you'll need twice that amount of time for you to get enough vitamin D. So, and you know, because of the development we've had and the staying indoors like we are here all the time, we have less exposure to sunlight to get vitamin D. And if that is the case, or if that's the case for you, there are vitamin D supplements that, if your lifestyle is that of office life, you can actually take the active form of vitamin D and take it as a supplement. And always have regular checks, maybe once every 3 months, of vitamin D3 levels in your blood.
Wale wa kwenda Mombasa once a year, sijui once after 10 years, please mmesikia, msiende huko mtuambie mmepata sunburn. Zoea Mombasa.
Wazoe, alafu pia wasiogope jua.
Wasiogope jua.
Unajua watu wenda Mombasa and then they just put themselves sunscreen, cover everything.
Layers and layers.
And they cover the active, what we call UVB, ultraviolet B, which is actually what converts your precursors of vitamin D to the active form. You block it kabisa with the sunscreen and everything.
But the doctor, you know, ladies nowadays, it's a daily thing, a daily skin routine to apply sunscreen almost every morning.
Yes.
Hey.
There is danger in that. I don't know whether we have time. I can also
Ebu
talk.
sema tu haraka haraka.
I think it's very important for ladies to remember that your skin absorbs whatever you put on it into the body. It is very important to remember that. Let me leave it at that. So anything you apply on the skin, like the way you swallow food and food gets absorbed, the skin also absorbs what you apply on it. So no, you don't.
Petroleum jelly.
So I think that's, but we were talking about the management of PCOS, and I don't want to digress too much from there.
Yeah.
I already alluded to rest, and I don't want to say too much about it. Stress. Stress is a very important factor in polycystic ovary syndrome. And management of stress, because you can't avoid stress.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's been shown that a certain level of stress, in fact, even high levels of stress
is good for
are
your
beneficial.
To keep you going.
Yes. It is the strategies that one employs to manage stress that need to be put in place. How you deal with stress. Stress is good. It enables one to be productive and react to situations. But managing stress, and these things are vicious, you know, they feed each other. Exercise, good diet, good sleep, avoiding those things that she did avoid, you know, alcohol and those things that are not food, smoking and what. All these things help in managing stress. So that is another element. So that's really about lifestyle. I don't know if I just digress a little in the medical management.
Please do.
Yeah, a little bit. If you come to the individual who does not desire to get pregnant, for that person, I think the approach I would give as a physician, because we say there is no cure for this, do your lifestyle. But if you still have symptoms that are troublesome, those are the ones we address. So, for instance, if your periods are so irregular and erratic, then you can use, for example, oral contraceptive pills to make them regular. If there is excessive hair growth, there are medications. Spironolactone is one of them. Cyproterone acetate. There are medicines that help that. If somebody has excessive acne, there are medications that can be used for that. And then, et cetera, et cetera. If there is obesity, you know, there are statins, which we know, medicines of that type that help to manage the fat process. Then if somebody wants to get pregnant, then the essence is to treat them with medications that induce ovulation. Yes, and there are medications like that. And then there are mainstream drugs. I want to use that word because everything that we take into the body to cure illnesses is really mainstream. But I want to say there are so-called synthetic medications that are produced for management of these symptoms. But there are others that are now what we call comprehensive alternative products. These are natural products, for instance, acupuncture. And scientific studies have shown that things like acupuncture can help to stabilize the hormone production. Acupuncture, you know, when they put needles in the muscles and particularly look at, another example is Chinese herbal medication. You know, these have been shown to be effective.
By the way, traditional meds,
Traditional meds. In India, they have what they call the Ayurvedic medications, which are there. And like berberine is an example that now it's very derived from these natural medications that is actually almost becoming mainstream in the treatment of not only polycystic ovary disease, but also in the treatment of diabetes, derived from natural medication.
Can you find them locally?
Yes, they are. In fact, many of the products that we are now using locally are these comprehensive alternative products that are not, because as we said, polycystic ovary disease does not have a cure. There is no product that is licensed as a treatment for polycystic ovary.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you, there is no product that is licensed as a treatment for it. You only use products that have been developed for other things to try and manage the symptoms. For instance, glucophage. Glucophage is a product that is used for managing diabetes, but we are using it to manage polycystic ovary syndrome.
Natasha, what worked for you? Which products?
None. I didn't go through any treatment.
And even to lifestyle change.
Let me tell you, what Daktari just talked about, mental discipline, that is it. The brain is so powerful. Zaituni, if you tell yourself, chips is not good for me, even that smell is going to put you off. Can you imagine I stayed a whole year? What? The smell of alcohol used to make me sick. Someone would open something. Until now? Not until now. That 1 year where I was medicated. That 1 year. But let me tell you something. Do you know how powerful the brain is? Yes. I kept feeding my brain the notion that I can't have kids, I can't have kids, I can't have kids. To the point that when I actually got pregnant with my firstborn, I found out at 7 months.
Yeah.
7?
Yes.
That happened.
And I was being, like my auntie was,
I'll give you a story. Actually, I have a patient and I will not mention names. I have a patient I was actually managing for polycystic ovary syndrome. Huge ovaries like this. And she came to me, in fact, she was traveling and she told me that because I'm traveling for some while, give me the medication and for polycystic ovary syndrome. Because I'm leaving, and she had missed her periods, which she normally did. Yeah. So I just filled in her prescription and told her, you go. When she came back, she was actually 14 weeks pregnant.
What? I was 28 weeks.
Yes.
The baby was not kicking because I had already conditioned my brain to the fact that I cannot have kids. In fact, I remember my auntie kept telling me, you're pregnant. And I'm telling her, no. Me, I'd have gone to hospital and the doctor would have told me, you have Ebola, and I would have believed.
Because you still had the same cravings.
Everything. And I couldn't feel it. I just, in fact, if anything, people were telling me I've lost weight. Because now I couldn't eat as much because I had constipation. That was it.
Yeah, and
I was always constipated.
And the cravings changed. Yeah.
What? I went to hospital. I remember my husband, we tried everything for constipation. Everything. So when my husband was like, no, you have to go to hospital. So when I went to hospital, I'm explaining to the doctor's like, ay, uko sure hauna mimba? I'm like, mi sina. So she sent me for an x-ray. That's when that x-ray lady came and told me, madam, unakuja x-ray na uko na mimba? I'm like, yeah. Then she like, kuja nikuonyeshe. She showed me the bones of the baby. I could not believe. The doctor comes, she's like, let's go do a pregnancy test. I'm like, it's okay, you do it. You'll find me in the office.
Okay, pregnancy
email
test.
It to me.
Oh, ile ya kukuwa sure about it.
I was so in denial. I'm like, email me the results. Me, I've gone, I have a meeting.
Okay, you just don't want to be falsely happy and probably it's not.
Imagine, and let me tell you how powerful the brain is. Immediately now that was fed into it, the baby started kicking. 28 weeks. I was literally pregnant because I gave birth at 38 weeks for 10 weeks. Now it's now changing my lifestyle again to accommodate a child. 10 weeks. So I didn't even have maternity clothes or anything.
And the second one, was it also
my antennas were like this, so I already knew from the beginning the way I was feeling. I knew I might be expecting.
Once your womb was open for this particular first pregnancy, the others ilikuwa ngumu kushika ama it was just flowing?
In fact, my doctor was like, now this might be a problem because it's like now your hormones have been reset.
That's it.
You're now a 16-year-old.
If
so now you're very fertile. Okay. Now we have to start managing that. Yeah. So after I had my firstborn, I said like 2 years, then now I got pregnant with my twins. Oh. But then now he told me, because now you're at high risk of getting pregnant, we need to find a way to manage this because I've never been on any contraceptives before. So I just told him, let's just lock it down.
And you've mentioned about contraceptives helping to manage, is it PCOS as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, if somebody is not desirous of a pregnancy, that's one of the ways that you can manage polycystic ovary syndrome. And it is good because it kind of, and I use this carefully, freezes the eggs, because with polycystic ovary syndrome, the ovary keeps going through an incomplete cycle. It recruits the eggs, but they never ovulate. But once eggs have been recruited and past a certain phase, and it recruits several, every time it recruits maybe 5 to 10, and once they go through a certain phase, they can never go back to be recruited again. Those are wasted.
So might it be one of the reasons why there's a delay in getting pregnant?
Correct, because the cycle never gets completed.
Okay.
Such that one of the eggs becomes the leader. Usually what happens, and that's why you end up with a singleton or twin pregnancy, is that once the process of recruiting the eggs in the cycle leading towards ovulation starts, many are recruited, one becomes the leader, and it suppresses the rest. These other ones that are suppressed go to waste. You understand? It's kind of a wasteful process if you think about it.
That's why you don't want to do that.
Yes. So, so when you take oral contraceptive pills, it kind of stops that process of recruiting. So your follicles, the immature ones, what we call oogenesis, the production of them remains there. So you kind of preserve them, if you want to use that term.
And those with actually PCOS, can they take the hormonal ones? Or
Yes.
it has to be non-hormonal?
No, it's hormonal. The ones I'm talking about are actually the combined oral contraceptive.
So they can take either?
That is the one that is used.
Okay.
Yeah, the combined oral contraceptive. Some rarely you may use the single hormone. The combined one has 2 hormones, the estrogen and progesterone. Rarely you may use one that has 1 hormone, but most commonly for those who don't want to get pregnant, that's the contraceptive pill. And then also there are pills now, and I don't want to mention brands, but there are pills that also have the effect of minimizing the hair growth and the acne. Yes, there are brands that are like those.
No, but now you don't have any.
Yeah.
Can't see them.
Like my skin gets really itchy.
At times,
because you're told you can't shower with hot water. You have to shower with lukewarm water. You can't spend a long period of time in the shower. Your showers have to be short.
Why is it
and then using scented, this scented
lotions,
moisturizers, scented body wash. I can't do that. All of mine have to be mild.
Okay.
So we struggle with that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So that still affects me to date.
Why is that the case?
Yeah, I think because of the hormonal changes that happen in the body, you have expression of androgens through the skin, and that's why you see this appearance of acne usually. So you want to avoid, you want to maintain a healthy skin in that regard, so that you are avoiding the manifestation of the androgens on the skin surface.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, guys, we can talk about this day and night.
Yeah.
But I just want you to give a final word to women who have gone through the same, and they are clearly, it is possible to get pregnant. Please emphasize to Kimaliza. Yeah.
It is. It's very possible to get pregnant. Ignore.
Yeah.
Don't listen to what people have to say. All our parts are different. And PCOS doesn't mean that you will never have a child. It's just a delayed process. Just trust the process, change your lifestyle. You don't have to go to the gym every day at 6 a.m., 10 p.m.
Yes.
Baby steps. If it's just drinking a bit more water today, tomorrow try your lemon water, the next day try a banana or an apple. Baby steps, and eventually you'll get there. Consistency is the thing.
Yeah.
And one thing I really want to emphasize out there is that I came to realize it is very impolite to ask a woman why she does not have a child. Why don't you have children? Why haven't you given birth? That is something we need to stop.
Yeah.
Because it affects us, our self-esteem, our mental health. Let's stop.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Daktari, final words. Na mali tunaweza kupata.
I think, let me say this. Prevention is always better than cure and rehabilitation. And in terms of prevention, lifestyle. Don't begin on this journey with a negative. Don't allow it to start. That's the first thing that I would advise anyone who wants to avoid this polycystic ovary disease. Those things we have talked about are the things that one needs to do. And then secondly, if you do have to have polycystic ovary syndrome, you can reverse the polycystic ovary syndrome. But it requires a lot of discipline, both physical and mental to be able to reverse it. And once you reverse it, maintain the lifestyle. Maintain the lifestyle because you accrue benefit in other areas than just the polycystic ovary syndrome. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Sana, Daktari. It's been a great pleasure to have you on set today and for also the insightful information you've given us about PCOS. Now we are much more aware, guys. Mmesikia, usiulize mtu why you're not getting pregnant. Let's be sensitive. Let's dispel all the myths around it and also just offer support to women out there suffering from these reproductive health issues. And this has been Health and Wellness. Like I said, check out Lugo Collections for all the amazing fits, both ladies and gentlemen suits, and also dresses and anything that you like to look good. Also make your women feel good out there, you know. And until next time, we've talked about PCOS this week. Until next time, we meet again Sunday, 6 p.m. on KTN Home. Find us on our YouTube channel at KTN Home and also on our Instagram, X, and Facebook platforms at KTN Home. And for me, it's at Ali_Zaitun. Until next Sunday, see you later. Thank you.